Welcome to the land of Rohan. I am Rothgar, Lord of Harrowdale. Today we are going to look into the practice that you can do for this game. There are three categories: Archery, Duel and Magic Duel. First we'll look at the dueling, which is not really very useful. There's not much to practice here, but it does make sense that you have a go at it to see what it's like and experience where you've got to click. The magic duel is extremely deceptive when you go into practice, but we'll come to that. The one that is really worth practicing is the archery that we'll be looking at last, and also something that I feel is the best part of the whole game. Now for the duel we get to choose Aragorn, Legolas, Éomer or Gimli, and as an opponent we choose either an orc or a Dunlending. We cannot choose Theoden, Theodred, Erkenbrand or Harmer for dueling. They are however represented by Éomer, since all five of them have the same style. The major difference is that Theodred, being a good deal older than the others, has less hit points, and it is advisable to avoid dueling with him if you can. We will start off with having Éomer going up against the Dunlending. You will recall that Éomer's favourite strike is the sweep. To move forward or backwards, you just simply click behind or in front of the character, depending on which direction you want to go. And by clicking on him, low, medium or high, he will block low, medium or high. And as you can see, I'm not really doing a good job at this. To strike, we just click on our opponent, here too, medium, high or low, depending on what part of the body we want to hit. And now you can already see that I have failed, so I'm going to try again. Now the sweep, I have this problem that I am out of reach. The Dunlending is also sweeping like an idiot, but he's doing a better job than me. When it comes to sweeping, he has a longer range than Éomer. However, if Éomer thrusts, his medium-sized sword will hit before the short sword of the Dunlending hits. So even if it's not his favoured strike, we thrust at the enemy. The tactic here is very simple. We just simply thrust as often and quickly as we can, always taking a little step back if the enemy gets too close. Now this also counts for all the other characters except for Gimli. Legolas has thrust as his favoured strike, but even if it weren't his favoured strike, it is what we use. Unfortunately though, the Dunlending has the same range as Legolas, so we have to be careful that we move back in time before the Dunlending thrusts at us. Now when Legolas goes up against an orc, he does have a slight reach advantage. However, the orc is very tough, and it can still happen that the orc finally gets too close to Legolas and does get in a really good hit. This is why you want to avoid using Legolas for direct melee combat. He is your archer. Now as you can see, the orc is relatively good at parrying with his axe. He doesn't have the same range as Legolas, but all the same he is relatively tough, he can take quite a few blows, and he's starting to get too close. Legolas can't really retreat anymore and will have to move forward to sweep at the orc. However, the orc is now getting in some really powerful cuts, and finally Legolas goes down. Now, Gimli has the shortest arms in the game and also a short axe. The orc, also equipped with a short axe, has longer arms and a longer reach, so he is actually hitting Gimli even though Gimli can't hit him. Gimli has to retreat first of all to make the enemy come to him, so that then Gimli can advance and bring in some quick, powerful chops. As said, the tactic for Gimli is very simple. Retreat, let the enemy come to you, then charge forward and chop him down. Now we have been told that Aragorn's favourite strike is any, but like with all the other swordsmen, we use the thrust. Aragorn has the longest reach, longer than the Rohirrim, and he can easily chop both Orc and Dunlending without them actually being able to reach him. So he's always got to retreat a tiny little bit to stay out of range. If a very tough Orc does get too close to Aragorn, then he will actually have to advance and chop the Orc down. But he will try to avoid this so he does not come into range of the Orc. So, as you can see, there isn't really much to practice here. All you've got to do is thrust at the enemy and try and stay out of range. Doesn't sound very heroic, but it is the way to survive in this game. During the magic duel, Gandalf simply moves backwards and forwards by clicking left or right. By clicking on his arms, he will block, but blocking is a bit difficult. He can also levitate, which is utterly useless. Up there he can't do anything and is still vulnerable to attacks. He can throw fireballs and lightning at the Nazgul. The blue bars show life point. Anyone who loses all the life points is out. The red bar is magic. As you can see, the fireball uses up a lot of magic, but it kills the Nazgul pretty quickly. However, this is deceptive because if you're practicing like this, it's very easy. Just a few fireballs and a bit of lightning and the Nazgul has had it. However, in the game, that is not really what is going to happen. The Nazgul turns up after battle if you've used magic, so your magic is not going to be at full. More realistic is a scenario starting like this. You've got practically no magic, you can't do anything. You have to avoid the Nazgul's attacks and wait for your magic to regenerate. Then you occasionally throw a fireball or some lightning at the Nazgul, always waiting for your magic to regenerate though before you use up too much or before you bring his life points down too far. This is actually a very useful trick because it means you can use a lot of magic during the battle. Then, during the encounter with the Nazgul, you can bring your magic points up to full again for the next battle. There's no actual advantage in winning the magic duel. If Gandalf loses, he's still in the game. He's only got one life point, but still in the game. He cannot die. And the Nazgul, there seems to be no realistic limit of them. You can probably combat and win against more than 9 Nazgul. It's not going to have any effect on the game. Now, archery is the one thing worth practicing, and in actual fact, it is definitely worth playing the game just for the archery practice. You will randomly be either a Rohirrim archer, that's the guy with the brown shirt here, or Legolas, you will recognise him with a green shirt. You cannot hit the orcs until they come over the ridge like they are now. And if you're hiding behind the battlements, they don't know where you are, they just randomly throw spears. If you reveal yourself, then they will throw at your position. But as long as you stay crouched behind the crenellations like this, you are safe. And this is a really good example where you can see what sort of nonsense this is. Battlements would not be constructed like this because you have to be safe at all times. But irrelevant, it is just a game. So, you can move to the left and to the right, but there's no good reason to do it. In theory, if you're on the left-hand side of the battlements, shooting at orcs on the left-hand side is going to be easier, and the same for the right. But the movement is inconvenient, so stay in the middle, stay hidden as often as possible, and just simply shoot the orcs. Each time you play, you are randomly either going to be a Rohirrim archer or Legolas, and you will either be behind battlements or a log in the forest. There's absolutely no difference in the scenario whatsoever. If you play Legolas, then you are basically on easy mode. It's much easier for him to hit the targets than for the Rohirrim archer. And during the game, you might have nighttime encounters. This has absolutely no effect though, it's just that the sky is dark. So those are the 3 options you have for practicing in this game, whereas they don't really have too much to do with what you're going to be doing most of the time during the game. The magic duel practice there is basically useless because you will not be in that situation in the game. The fencing is more fun, I think, and you can learn 1 or 2 things by doing it, but on the whole, just simply keep your opponent at a distance and stab at him. That's all there is to it. The archery is also relatively straightforward, but I think it is definitely the most fun part of the game. So I'm going to shut up now and let you enjoy me shooting some orcs. See you next time.
She